Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage director Anne-Marie Rocher and editor and associate producer Alex Lucas. Well, a truly incredible film. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and it was just remarkable to watch. My first question, Anne-Marie, is about I guess just what is your inspiration behind making this film? What is it that really spoke to you about urban forestry and made you want to explore this topic?
Well, it is strange. It started by a little girl who was coming to see me at the country, and she was just 5 or 6 years old, and she was repeating all the time, "The trees have a heart. The trees have a heart." And at that time, I was looking for a good topic for a feature film. And I thought, trees, that's a good idea. And that's how I started to research, and then I discovered urban forests, went to conference, met expert, activists, people who were so interesting. And at the same time, when I started my research, it was 8 years ago, urban forest was not something that was very well known. And I thought, these people are working in the shadow, and it's too bad because we should know more about them. And that's how I started the film.
Oh, that's wonderful, yeah. I mean, this film really beautifully shows how trees aren't just a part of the landscape, but really a part of our lives. What did you most want audiences to feel or perhaps reconsider about their relationship with urban nature?
Well, when I wrote the script, one thing that was important for me, and I was telling that to my editor and to my director of photography, that the tree was in a certain way the main character. And I wanted the trees to be there. I wanted the poetry of the trees in the transition and things like that. So the people, I thought, if they connect with the trees and fall in love with them in the film, then they will be more interested to follow the activity of the expert or the activist. Yeah, that was a little bit the idea there beyond that.
That's wonderful, yeah. And it is really a very hopeful film, which is something you don't often see in environmental documentaries. There's a lot of focus on what we've done wrong, of course, naturally, but not necessarily about what we can do and where we can go from here. Are there any questions from the audience? Anybody have a question for the filmmakers? If not, it's cool. I got many more. Yeah, in the back there.
It could be an angle, but I didn't choose that angle. I was more interested in the people who were working, were involved in a different action for urban forestry. That was my angle, and I discovered also when I was looking at the history of urban forests in Canada that in fact it was always the citizen who was the one who was activist and was bringing the ideas, who was doing something, who was pushing for urban forest. The government, the municipality were a little bit late and behind in Canada. Now it's starting to, we see some municipalities who are really getting involved and put money, but it took a while before things happen in Canada. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. It was a great question. Any other questions from the audience? Yes. It's a great idea.
Well, I must tell you something. In my research 8 years ago, one of the first city I went to see is London, because I have good friends here, Huguette and André and Stephanie, who helped me to visit the city and showed me what was happening. And I did that because one of my characters, Sophie, that you saw doing her PhD at UBC, at that time she was doing, when I started my research, she was doing her master about London. So I thought, oh, that would be interesting. I love that character, so I love Sophie, so I will connect with the city of London. But then it took me so much time to find the money to do the film that when I started the film, well, Sophie was doing her PhD and about another topic. So it was then difficult for me to connect London in the film.
Alex, question for you. So this film, really something that stands out to me is how it blends science and story and really the beautiful imagery. That must have been a fairly unique challenge for you as an editor. So I'm curious, how did you approach that kind of that balance between realism and hope while still telling the story?
Yes, it was definitely a challenge because we have many characters and many locations. And how do you rewrite the story, from scratch? Because the plan was at first, I think, to find out which stories are going to remain, because we had many characters that, and a lot of them were actually cut out of the film. because we were collaborating with the National Film Board that told us that the film was too long. We had a 2-hour first cut. And it's true that, you know, in terms of storytelling, the challenge was the part where it's very heavy in information. And we wanted to keep a balance and create the emotional connection with the struggles of the trees. And we did an important work with the composers as well, because this is where there's room for creating the emotion in the film. I mean, some of the stories are indeed very touching of the local activists, whether in New Westminster or in Laval, you know, the employees replanting the trees. But I think we, the way in intertwining one story and one character to the other was a challenge in the sense that we had to find the smoother way to do that. And this is where music plays a role for that, to keep the sort of le fil narratif, how would we say that in English? The narrative thread to get from beginning to end. And it was super stimulating in terms of storytelling to kind of mix this. At the beginning, we had 8 to 9 stories, and we ended up with 7, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and that's where an editor is so important for a filmmaker, because I loved all my stories, I love all my characters, and I didn't feel that one of them was weak, but the editor is there to tell you that maybe this one is weak, maybe we should cut this one. So it's a very difficult moment for a filmmaker. But at the same time, when you have a good editor, as nice as Alex was with me, sensitive, well, it's always, then you have a good relation.
But we also had the help of the producer at the NFB, Christine Aubé, who gave us a lot of feedback, and that helped us too to you know, find the weak spots and deal with some of the challenges that will not go into detail tonight, but it was, I think, how do you keep the most important information in this movie and still keep the emotional connection? To me, I learned personally a lot of things about, you know, urban forestry that I didn't know before, just by doing this film. And yeah, so it's always a collaborative process, and when things work, then, you know, it's great.
Well, it definitely worked. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it seems like a real fine line sort of between conveying that sense of urgency, but without losing the optimistic sort of narrative that you're trying to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions from the audience? All right, well, I have a few more if you don't mind. So this film really highlights Indigenous perspectives on environmental stewardship. I'm wondering how those collaborations shaped your understanding of urban forestry in Canada. And Marie, maybe you could answer that?
Yeah, well, I discovered that program at the University of Toronto very late in my process. But when I discovered it, I was interested because I did before connection with First Nation people on the reserve and made a film about them. But I didn't know anything about First Nation people who live in cities. And that was really interesting. And also, we discovered a little bit, Alex and me, that it was interesting because these youth are cut from their culture, tradition, because they are living a little bit alone in the cities. And they were a little bit like the tree at the school, the big oak, who was cut from the rest of the other trees. And there was a beautiful symbol there that the trees, they need to be together to be healthy. and communities, in different communities, it's the same. We need to keep our different communities healthy, but for that they must live together and understand each other. So I thought it was a beautiful link that we had with the First Nation people in that film.
That's great. Yeah, there's a real symbiotic relationship between people and the environments in which they live, which you explored like really beautifully here. Alex, you filmed from all across the country, from Vancouver to Montreal. I'm wondering what differences or lessons really stood out to you from across those different cities where you were filming, and what might we here in London learn from those examples?
Wow, good question. I think, like Anne-Marie said earlier, it's important to have grassroots movements that come from the people to push, for policy. I mean, we are lucky to live in a democracy where we can choose our leaders. And in these challenging times, it's up to us to, make sure, like Luc, one of the characters of the film said, this all depends on funding, basically. I mean, it's great to have the people that are giving their time, but the level of governments should help, should be there for that as well. Otherwise, it's if we open things up for development and with no guardrails, well, bad things can happen.
See what has happened, right?
Yeah, I mean that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see with our friend the red light up there that we need to wrap things up, so that's all the time that we have. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie and Alex, for taking the time to chat. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Folks, if you enjoyed this Q&A and you still have some more questions, these two will be in the sponsor lounge for a bit after we exit the theater. So please feel free to join them in there and chat a little bit. And before you get going, this is a quick reminder that this film here, Urban Forests, qualifies for the Old Oak Audience Choice Award and Fan Favorite Award. So please score the film by ripping the number at the bottom of your ballot and placing it in the ballot box as you exit the theater. Thank you again to our filmmakers for sharing this beautiful and important work, and to all of you for joining us here tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the film and the conversation, and I encourage you to explore more of the incredible stories being shared here at the Forest City Film Festival this week. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.